Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, Tasmania's border with New South Wales will stay open despite escalating COVID cases across Sydney. The cluster has now grown to 65, with 22 new cases emerging, prompting localised lockdowns.
With 22 new COVID cases overnight, the message was clear for Sydney-siders in 4 council areas.
You need to stay at home unless absolutely necessary.
The lockdowns come as the Bondi cluster grows to 65. Authorities are confident with all but one of the cases linked.
However, health remains concerned that given how contagious the virus is, we are likely to see more cases in coming days.
Tasmania has declared 7 areas of Sydney high risk. Returning travellers have already been caught up in restrictions.
We're off to Tasmania. We are returning home. We have to return and then isolate for 2 weeks. It was a risk we took when we embarked on travelling.
Our border will remain open to the rest of New South Wales, but that could change.
If there is a need to declare the Greater Sydney area as high risk, then we won't hesitate to do so.
Health authorities say it's the context of COVID cases, not just the numbers, that are driving border decisions.
We need to envisage a future where we're not closing borders to unrealised risk. We really need to deal with risk that's there.
Tasmania has reached another milestone. 200,000 vaccine doses have now been administered, and more than 10% of the population is now fully vaccinated. It's hoped the rest will follow soon.
Certainly that's our intention, to vaccinate all of Tasmania as soon as we can, and I would love to see it actually happen before Christmas this year.
National modelling shows Tasmania will have access to 42,000 doses a week next month. The call has also gone out for pharmacists to join the program, and more vaccinations could mean fewer closed borders.
I think that we will see less opportunity for lockdowns in the future. That's a given, I think.
Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Launceston's wave of weapon crime has continued, with 2 more firearms incidents rocking suburbs last night. Both are being investigated by Tasmania Police's gun squad, who've also been kept busy by an overnight raid on a rural property.
Police today searching for leads after 2 separate firearms incidents hit Launceston residences overnight. At 1 a.m, police attended a house in New Street, Invermay, after a shot was discharged into a rear bedroom window.
The occupants were home at the time, however uninjured. The offender has gained access to the residence and threatened the residents and stolen some items of property.
At 4 a.m, damage to a St Leonard's property was sustained after a shot was fired through the front window.
Residents also were home at the time, however uninjured. A small white vehicle was seen leaving the area.
Police on scene at both properties this morning searching for evidence. They say the 2 aren't connected. As they continue their investigations, police are asking for anyone with information about either incident to come forward. As Launceston's wave of firearms crime continues, the gun squad is continuing to make progress.
They're currently at a rural location in Travellers Rest area, along with other members of Tasmania Police. They have been at that area and have located a large quantity of firearms overnight.
Police saying 33 firearms and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition have been seized over the last 7 weeks. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
The number of Tasmanians waiting for a home continues to skyrocket, with more than 4,000 people now on the housing register. The average wait time for priority applicants has extended to 55 weeks. Labor says the numbers represent a 75% blowout since the Liberals came to government, while the Housing Minister says the Liberals' plan to deliver more social housing will help put downward pressure on the market. A new 700-home development at New Norfolk is one step closer to helping ease the housing shortage. The first slab of concrete has been poured at the site, but there are already warnings more infrastructure investment is needed in the area to keep up with growing demand.
I believe that the local community will be able to absorb that growth over time, so there won't be a shock to the system.
We have to make sure that we're ready for this type of development as well, in terms of our infrastructure. So the Bridgewater Bridge is a project that is really significant to the flow of traffic in and out of this region.
Plans are also underway for a private hospital, retirement home and a boutique hotel to be built in the area. A proposed winter edition of the Tasmanian Wine Festival has been axed due to a lack of funding. Organisers putting the blame on the state government, saying requests for financial support continue to fall on deaf ears. Summer versions of the event previously attracted around 10,000 patrons. The state government says it is interested in supporting the festival in the coming years. A long-awaited report is recommending sweeping changes for the Tamar estuary, which could see millions of dollars put into solving the mud issues and upgrades to infrastructure. The head of the report vowing to fix some of the problems of the past and asking Tasmanians to have their say on what they want.
The Tamar estuary at low tide.
It's dirty smelling mud.
But plans are in the works to give the area a much-needed facelift, with major changes for the Seaport Marina.
To make a larger boardwalk along in front of the Seaport houses and apartments, basically to cover up the mud and then to move the marina out.
The Tamar Estuary Management Task Force draft report, released today, also proposing a walkway development around the West Tamar, picnic and recreational areas, a cultural hub at King's Wharf and $4 million to fix the mud.
Which is a short-term targeted dredging program to give access to some recreational users as opposed to a mass dredging program which would be difficult environmentally.
The Tamar Action Group welcomes the changes but says it doesn't go far enough.
A permanent freshwater lake would fix the problems. It would mean permanent high tide. Permanent high tide here is beautiful.
The state government has an ambitious plan to have much of the work completed by the next election.
We want everyone to enjoy it. We want it to look as good as it should look. We want it to be as healthy as it ought to be. The ecosystem needs to be revived and it's overdue for some infrastructure investment.
A public consultation period on the proposed changes will begin in August and the community will have 2 months to have their say. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
A former Hobart restaurant owner is facing court over allegations he underpaid staff. Gary Dupree is accused of underpaying entitlements at the Solstice Cafe restaurant in Salamanca, Jimmy D's Bar and Grill and the Moona Hotel. The Fair Work Ombudsman is also alleging Mr Dupree's company Garage breached record-keeping laws. The case will head to the Federal Circuit Court in Hobart next month. E-scooters could soon be hitting the streets of Tasmania with a tender process to bring them to Launceston and Hobart finishing up. While their use will require the state to adopt new regulations, proponents say they could be key to clearing congestion.
It's the two-wheeled transport that's taking off around Australia. Now, e-scooters are set to appear on Tasmanian streets in the not-too-distant future.
So if you're commuting to and from work, heading out for dinner, going to see friends, running errands, a scooter's great to leave the car at home and hop on two wheels. But it's also great for tourists.
Expressions of interest close today for companies looking to bring them to Launceston and Hobart.
And that's exciting to see that people want to have scooters here, and it's an opportunity for our city to continue to develop.
Several companies have brought demonstrations to the state, hoping to progress to a trial stage.
I think it's really to see how it is working and then how can we fine-tune it. Are there ways that we can make it better?
It follows an election commitment by the Liberal Party to modify regulations that currently limit their use.
This is the way of the future and we'll be deregulating this in a way that encourages their use but also keeping the community safe.
Modern technology allowing for speed limits and barring the vehicle from certain locations. Some say they could play a part in alleviating the congestion that's crippling the state's biggest cities.
We know that having micromobility will help solve some of these problems.
Both the successful companies and the new regulations are set to be announced in the coming weeks. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
A Longford man has donated $250,000 to the WP Holman Clinic in Launceston. Mark Belbeluk says he'll donate another $500,000 if the state government will match it dollar for dollar.
My mum passed away in 2015 and the care and the compassion she was shown was exceptional. And I think that the most beautiful part of Australia deserves world-class cancer treatment facilities.
The money will go towards equipment which delivers specialised radiation therapy. A new safety video series is hoping to help educate children about the dangers of burn injuries. The locally made clips reinforce safe behaviours through song and dance. The idea came from a nurse working on the Royal Hobart Hospital's burn unit, wanting to reduce the number of children sustaining the lifetime injuries.
And it is a really preventable injury within Tassie and nationally.
I am just over the moon with the performance by the Scallywags, and such an important message that they're able to give to our community about preventing burns in young people.
The resources are also set to be used internationally, including in New Zealand and Fiji.
To the State League, Clarence's coach isn't too pleased about losing 3 players to suspension this weekend. Former AFL player Josh Green, Jason Bailey and Ethan Jackson will miss the match against Launceston after a fiery game against Kingborough. Jeremy Webberley was coy about why he isn't happy, but says he'll be bringing it up with the league.
Well, it's probably not for me to discuss in the media, really. Like, I don't want to bring any negativity to footy and the TSL, but I'll take that up with AFL Tas and we'll deal with it.
Senior players are finally filling North Launceston's lineup. Alex Lee, Jack Event, Mark Walsh, Fletcher Bennett and Will Edmonds return, along with Brad Cox-Goodger, who carved up the Tigers last time they met.
The development league's playing super well at the moment, and if they're playing well and some senior guys aren't playing well, I won't be afraid to pull the trigger and make a swap where it needs to be.
I think Brad had something like 14 touches in the second quarter against us, so then that's when we've got to have our plans in place to try and put a little bit of that fire out. So it's lucky we've got a fireman in the team now.
Tomorrow's game will be only the 3rd this season where the Bombers won't be fielding a debutant. After squandering a 2-goal lead in the statewide cup semi-final, Kingborough can make amends tomorrow when it takes on Launceston City. The Lions have had 2 weeks off, but it's their lack of experience playing together which could be holding them back.
Our resilience as a team is something that we need to work on moving forward. I think older and more experienced teams have that. They have that fight and that drive.
It is a late game, a 4:30 kickoff. And this week marks 40 years since the National Basketball League title came to Tasmania after Launceston Casino City was crowned champion. In tonight's Friday Flashback, we caught up with one of the players who also managed to track down the championship flag years after it went missing. The team had the tune.
C-A-S-I-N-O, Casino. Casino is the name, and basketball's the game. Come on, everybody, sing along.
And the name cheering on the country club's construction at the time. In the final, there was a slight delay.
Probably won't forget that moment.
Before the big game, Launceston Casino City versus Nunawading beamed into Tasmanian living rooms from Adelaide. Jim Erickson opened the scoring before Tassie's Trevor Matthew hit the jackpot for Casino City.
But this is Matthew, the local lad, makes good.
And you may recognise the voice behind the microphone, another Tasmanian, Tim Lane.
Oh, what a shot.
The shorts were as tight as the scoring, but Cliff Martin, whose nickname we can't repeat these days, blew the game apart.
Great steal. Interesting. Easy meat.
Marquee man Ian Davies famously played a shocker in the first half, but in the second, he turned it on.
All the way. Davies, oh yes!
After being up by a point at the break, Casino City crushed Nunawading, and confidence was over the top.
Clements, the long one to Martin. Beautifully done.
As the Tasmanians easily claim the state's only NBL title to date.
And there it is.
I came back on the plane that night. For some reason they asked all the players to stay on the plane. When we got off, the whole Launceston airport was just packed. It was brilliant. And then we went down to a nightclub called the Butter Factory, and it was packed again, and it was just a massive night. It was just really good for Launceston basketball.
Steve Warren was part of that immortal team, but his legacy is legendary. Only recently he tracked down the championship flag, which had been missing for decades.
We've got it back, and now we've got to figure out where to put it.
The team folded the following season, opening the door for the Devonport Warriors and the Hobart Devils to join the NBL. Warren is now right behind the Jack Jumpers, but believes Tasmania's original NBL team had something special.
I'm sure to this day that if Launceston had stayed in, then we had the history. We'd been premiers, so Launceston, they may have still had an NBL team to this day.
Good evening. Hobart 14 today. Launceston struggled to double figures. Burnie and Devonport 13 degrees. Lyawini the low with -4, our top being 16 on Flinders Island. Friendly Beaches 15, King Island, Strawn and St Helens 14, Smithton and Grove 13, Bushy Park 11 and Low Head 10. A few thunderstorms sat off the northeast today with most of the cloud concentrated there and over the southwest of the state. Lots of cloud over eastern Queensland and New South Wales with origins over the top end, a little low cloud over the southern coastline. Tomorrow the high takes charge over most of the mainland, a weak trough in the picture over New South Wales along with a cold front over southeast Queensland. Winds south-southwesterly, tending west-northwesterly and increasing to 20 to 30 knots in the afternoon, swells to 3 to 4 metres. Strong wind warning, that's from Tasman Island to St Helens Point. Saturday for Hobart, 12 and a late shower blowing in. 1 overnight for Maydena, showers increasing later, 9 the top, 9 also for Oatlands with a late shower. Launceston heading for 12 with a late shower, same for Devonport but 13 the high and a top of 5 for Lyawini. Burnie expecting 13 with showers increasing, same for Strawn, 13 also for Marrawar. St Helens looking for a top of 13 as well, a possible late shower, partly cloudy for Swansea and 12 the high for Orford. On Sunday, fine and cloudy apart from a shower over the west, far south and Bass Strait Islands. Areas of morning fog and frost on Monday but a fine day across the state, and on Tuesday fine and partly cloudy, the chance of a shower around Burnie. Mostly sunny in Perth tomorrow, showers for Adelaide and Melbourne, partly cloudy in Sydney, rain and 17 for Brisbane. A little foggy over Hobart at the moment, currently just 7 degrees, Launceston cloudy and 8 and partly cloudy in Devonport and currently 8 degrees.
And that's all your news for now. Thanks for joining us tonight and this week. Louise will be with you over the weekend. For now, good night.